infamously tried to sue his way into the NFL after he led Ohio State to a championship after his freshman year. Michael McCann is joining us on Skype. Michael, you worked on that case. Just remind our audience, why did the judge deny Clarett entry to the NFL?
Sure, Maggie. So the judge did it. The judge, Sonia Sotomayor, who's now in the United States Supreme Court, she ruled, along with two other judges, that because the NFL and the Players Association had collectively bargained a rule stating that there's an age restriction, 3 years out of high school, essentially, Clarett wasn't eligible. Now, there are reasons to really question that holding, one of which is that we'd argue it wasn't really collectively bargained. And secondly, it's often been stated, Maggie, that, well, the issue has been decided, that the Second Circuit ruled. Well, that's only one federal circuit. The Supreme Court hasn't ruled on this issue. And as Alan Milstein, Clarett's lead attorney, told Sean in Sean's timepiece, there's a very good chance this kind of lawsuit could be brought in another federal circuit that has a more favorable law for the player.
Michael, do you think that if this case was tried again, maybe in a more favorable circuit, would there be a different verdict?
It's very possible. And the reason why, Maggie, is that here's the argument. Even if the NFL and the Players Association agrees on this rule, the rule impacts a person who isn't yet in the NFL and who by virtue of the rule can't be in the NFL. It's a prospective player. He has no seat at the bargaining table. And you could argue that the NFL likes to have this rule because it gives the NFL more time to evaluate players in a free minor league system, which is, you could say, is the NCAA football. And for the Players Association, they don't want to give up spots to veteran players who are in the union, roster spots. There's really an unfairness to it, and there's a law called the Mackey Rule, which basically says a rule is only protected by collective bargaining if it's hours, wages, or other working conditions. Well, how is Clarett or somebody in that position who isn't yet in the league? He's not being paid. His hours aren't impacted. He only wants a spot in the draft, and by being in the draft, he only really impacts one player directly, and that would be Mr. Irrelevant, the player who gets bumped out of the draft. Yeah, there's a very decent argument. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I think the NBA has to grapple with this issue as well, particularly if they raise the age limit. It's certainly something worth monitoring.